Hello, welcome back to our channel. I'm Emily with Rustic Passion Studio. Today I am going to show you my floral abstract coasters. These are super fun, easy to make, and really don't take that much time. So go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel and we'll get started. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I mixed up 150 milliliters of epoxy, and I use the KS Liquidy Split brand. It is a faster set, however, it doesn't set as fast as many others that I've tried. I would either use this or my KS Art UV. Both of those would work perfect for these coasters. And then I'm going to use two different colors of glitter as well as a white pigment paste on these. So I went ahead and just separated them out into 3 smaller medicine cups that we are going to use for those. The first color of glitter I'm going to use is going to be for the center of the flowers, and this is Cheers from Charm City Sparkles and Crafts, and it's kind of a champagne, slightly rose gold, medium kind of chunk. And then you also want to make sure your coasters don't get any of that loose glitter inside of them so you don't have any random stray pieces in the clear parts. This color I mixed up approximately 20 milliliters of epoxy, but I didn't use maybe even half of that, so you probably don't need as much as I did here. I did make it so that the glitter was fairly thick, so when I put it in the center, it's not going to flow out too far. The next color glitter I'm going to use is called Frosty, also from Charm City Sparkles and Crafts. This one's just kind of an opal color shift glitter that I'm going to put around the outer edge of the flowers only. So for this one you don't want too much, as you want it to still be clear and to be able to see through the outer edges. For this opal color, I used a full 30 milliliters of epoxy, and that'll be split between both coasters. Next, for my white, I use a epoxy pigment paste, and I will have all these items I use down in the description box below, as well as some links. With this, you barely need anything at all. I just have a small tip of a popsicle stick in the white, and I'm going to mix that in. I think I have about 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy in this little cup. And this is what we're going to use for the lacing effect of the flowers. You don't want to get too much of this pigment paste or it'll get too heavy and sink to the bottom of the coasters. So you do want to keep it fairly thin, but you still want it to be opaque. When I'm finished mixing up that paste, I'm going to use a plastic sandwich bag or a plastic bread bag, and I put it inside of a little cup just to hold it down so that you're not pouring onto the sides of the bag. And we're going to use this kind of like a little piping bag like you would use in baking. So you want to pour that all into your bag. And then once you've finished, you can kind of just twist the bag up and set it to the side for us to use later when we do the petals. Now we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to start with the center of my flowers, and I pour probably just a couple milliliters of that Cheers chunky glitter right into the middle. And this will spread out a little bit as you pour the other epoxy in, so just remember that. I probably poured a little bit more than I normally do here. And then next we're going to go in with our opal glitter. I just went ahead and torched the bubbles off the top of that since it had been sitting for a little bit. And we're going to just outline around the edge of our flowers, just kind of a thin line. As the epoxy sets, it kind of pulls the glitter in towards the middle, and that will fan out. Now after both of our glitter colors are in there, I went ahead and torched the top of my clear epoxy to pop the bubbles that had risen up. And then I'm just going to use all the clear that I have remaining and just fill in the coasters completely. After all the epoxy is poured, we're ready to go into our little flower petals. So we go ahead and use that little piping bag we made with the white pigment paste. And my head's in the way, but I'm just cutting a very small sliver off of the tip of that bag so that we'll use that as a thin line for creating our petals. And then we're just going to go ahead and start making our flower petals. For these coasters, I did 5 petals for each flower. You could do this in any pattern or design that you'd like, and then I did 3 layers within every petal. And I know my head gets in the way a lot here while I'm looking at these, but I just do 5 big petals and then keep going around on the inside a couple more times. And then if there's any thin spots, you can fill them in with a little bit more of this paste. You don't want to go too heavy-handed on this white, or else white is a lot heavier in the epoxy and it will sink all the way to the bottom, and we want more of a feathered effect to these. After the petals are all drawn in, I'm going to use this little pointed silicone brush, and you can't see much of this, but I just pull a line down through the center of every one of those little petals and just kind of make a little bit more of an abstract look. And you could do more of this if you wanted less, or not even do it at all. Now the last step before we let these cure is just running our heat gun over them a little bit. I kind of blow it around the edges to kind of fan those down a little bit. The epoxy will naturally pull to the center and do that as well, so they kind of change shape as they cure. And then after you're done with this step, we just let them sit and cure for at least 4 hours, since I used the Liquidy split from KS Resin. Otherwise, I just let them sit overnight or 24 hours till they're fully cured before I take them out and move on to the next step of the edging. Now that my coasters have sat for a full day, I'm going to head and unmold them, see what they look like. They always look so different, and they're always fun to unmold and see what they're going to be. I go ahead and take a 60 grit sanding block and just kind of go on the bottom of those coasters, just on that very edge where the lip kind of sticks up, and I just take off any little pieces, any little ridge that's sticking up. You want to be very careful not to hit the bottom of the coaster so that you don't scratch it, or you will see that since these are very clear. After I'm done sanding, I want to go ahead and clean the coasters up. So I just use some 99% alcohol and a paper towel, and I just really wipe them all clean, being sure to get in all those little grooves of the edges since they do have little turns and twists in them. And then next for the edging, I use a Deco Color leafing pen, and this one is in copper, so it's kind of a rose gold copper color. And it goes on very nice and thick, so you really only need to do one round of this all the way around your coaster, and you should have it fully colored. It is opaque and it is oil based. After we do the edges, I tip the marker so that just part of it goes onto the top of the coaster, and I just kind of trim out and go around the entire coaster that way. And then I kind of go back in, and if I see any little spots or maybe little bubbles that got missed, I'll go ahead and cover that back up. Once this has dried, it is hard to go back and do a second coat because it kind of takes it off. So just make sure it's fully coated and you get a nice good color across the entire outer edge. Thank you for watching with us today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you could, please go ahead and like and subscribe.